To the outside world, Nicky Collette looks like she has a life full of glamour and bliss. But to find the truth, one must unmask the dark shroud of despair that has haunted her for 30 years. That's what we'll do next on the true Hollywood story of Nicky Collette. Don't be afraid. Nicky Collette was actually born Nicole Michelle Wirtz on November 6, 1974, in the backwoods town of St. Louis, Missouri. She was born to a family of poor migrant coal workers who scraped the floor to make ends meet and were often in trouble with the law. Her family, although poverty-stricken, were God-fearing people and tried their best to rear the child that would become Nicky Collette. They gave her as much love as possible and did their best to keep her happy. Her whims were many, but they would go above and beyond to cater to them the best they could. And that seemed to work during the earliest parts of Nicky's childhood. Yet still, she had her eye on something else. Something far greater than St. Louis. She was a ham and a showboat. She would seek the spotlight wherever she could, wherever it was, whether it was on the tough streets of St. Louis or in the confines of her very own house with her very own family, and often at the expense of others. She got this from both sides. First, from her father, Tony Wirtz, an aspiring adult filmmaker. Tony tried first to make it in Hollywood, but his initial attempts were flops, and then he became sucked in by the drugs, danger, and deceit of the porn industry until it finally overwhelmed him. Nicky also inherited her lust for the spotlight from her mother, Sue, a gypsy belly dancer. Sue Wirtz most certainly was a passionate woman, but she was not passionate about caring for her children. She was passionate about alcohol. Nicky and her siblings did everything they could to try to make their parents notice them, but the parents were concerned about other things and the children lived in obscurity. Nicky sought refuge in sports, but quickly learned she is no athlete. Socially, she was an outcast. This meant she spent most of her time alone and sad. Then one day she answered the siren's call of the theater and finally found her true calling. She loved the theater. She loved to sing. She loved to dance. She loved to prance. But soon she found that the theater did not love her. Her fellow actors would ridicule her for being pathetic, and she would be frustrated that she did not have the same talent as they did. But the early reviews were not good. The New York Post wrote, "This is the worst piece of singing we've ever heard. Seriously." The bad reviews caused Nicole to spiral into despair and to produce a child out of wedlock. Her family was furious. Her own father demanded to take her to prom. Soon thereafter, Nicole left home to elope to Las Vegas. There she led a life of utter excess. She worked as a dancer during the day and partied during the night, often surrounding herself with the hottest hunks of Hollywood. In her spare time, she found time to compete in beauty pageants. But she could never win, often enduring the cruel and bitter taste of defeat while watching someone else take the glory. Even her most happiest moments were sad. She pressed on in her Vegas dancing and singing revue, but never really got the lead role she so desired. Instead, she was relegated to bit parts, the kind of parts that escape the radar of both critics and fans alike. But then one day, her big day came. She finally got the break she had been longing for. She was to become Peaches in the new Peaches and Herb singing group.
We'll be having some fun. People walking around. We'll be falling in love. Boardwalk.
Give the lady a hand.
But it would not last. She again found herself amid despair, and this time followed her father's footsteps and embraced the warm, welcoming arms of the pornography industry. But then, when all hope seemed lost, she was rescued. She met and married Dave Collette, a prominent Episcopalian minister who lived in Bulgaria. The two were wed on February 20th, 1998, and then moved to a small cottage in the south of Minnesota. They were happy. Finally, Nicky was happy. She could rest easily, knowing that someone was providing for her, and that she did not have to resort to the vile and disgusting things of her past life. They were living the life that every American wants to live. That is, until one day when something terrible happened. Dave was stricken with a bad case of mange. At first, Nicky did her best to care for him, but then his needs became too great, and she spiraled into alcoholism.
Kiddo, who's your little friend? This is Jenny, and we're gonna do a project for school today. Jenny, welcome to our happy home. Joe, why don't you ever bring friends over here before today? It's been about 5 years since
Her addiction to booze was too much for Dave to handle, and he soon left her. It was then that Nicky resorted to perhaps the most vile of all her vices, using live babies as puppets. Just watch these horrifying clips.
The rhythm of good music. One pill makes you larger, and one pill makes you small. And the one that mother gives you won't do anything.
What does the next 30 years hold for Nicky? Well, actually, we will have to wait to find out after 7 years, when she is due to be released from prison. But hopefully, for her sake, it will be much better than the first 30 years of her life. The end.